Hi! We're going to read some more of our book today, Ramona the Pest. We're on chapter 3. It's called Seat Work. There were two kinds of children who went to kindergarten. Those who lined up beside the door before school as they were supposed to, and those who ran around the playground and scrambled to get in line when they saw Miss Vinny approaching. Ramona ran around the playground. One morning, as Ramona was running around the playground, she noticed Davey waiting for Henry Huggins to lead him across the intersection. She was interested to see that Davey was wearing a black cape pinned to his shoulders with two big safety pins. While Henry had held up two cars and a cement truck, Ramona watched Davey crossing the street. The more Ramona saw of Davey, the better she liked him. He was such a nice, shy boy with blue eyes and soft brown hair. Ramona always tried to choose Davey for her partner in folk dancing, and when the class played Grey Duck, Ramona always tagged Davey unless he was already in the mush pot. When Davey arrived, Ramona marched right up to him and asked, "Are you Batman?" "No," said Davey. "Are you Superman?" asked Ramona. "No," said Davey. Who else could Davey be in a black cape? Ramona stopped and thought, but she was unable to think of anyone else who wore a cape. "Well, then who are you?" she asked at last. "Mighty Mouse!" crowed Davey, delighted that he had baffled Ramona. "I'm going to kiss you, Mighty Mouse!" shrieked Ramona. Davey began to run, and Ramona ran after him. Round and round the playground they ran, with Davey's cape flying out behind him. Under the traveling bars, around the jungle gym, she chased him. "Run, Davey, run!" screamed the rest of the class, jumping up and down until Miss Vinny was seen approaching, and everyone scrambled to get into line. Every morning afterward, when Ramona reached the playground, she tried to catch Davey so she could kiss him. "Here comes Ramona," the other boys and girls shouted when they saw Ramona walking down the street. "Run, Davey, run!" And Davey ran with Ramona after him. Round and round the playground they ran while the class cheered Davey on. "That kid ought to go out for track when he gets a little bit older," Ramona heard one of the workmen across the street say one day. Once, Ramona came near enough to grab Davey's clothes, but he jerked away, popping the buttons off his shirt. For once, Davey stopped running. "Now see what you did," he accused. "My mother's going to be mad at you." Ramona stopped in her tracks. "I didn't do anything," she said indignantly. "I just hung on. You did the pulling." "Here comes Miss Vinny," someone called out, and Ramona and Davey scurried to get in line. After that, Davey stayed farther away from Ramona than ever, which made Ramona sad because Davey was such a nice boy, and she did so long to kiss him. However, Ramona was not so sad that she stopped chasing Davey. Round and round they went every morning until Miss Vinny arrived. Miss Vinny, by this time, had begun to teach her class something more than games and the rules of kindergarten and the mysterious Donzer song. Ramona thought of kindergarten as being divided into two parts. The first part was the running part, which included games, dancing, finger painting, and playing. The second part was called seat work. Seat work was serious. Everyone was expected to work quietly in his own seat without disturbing anyone else. Ramona found it difficult to sit still because she was always interested in what everyone else was doing. "Ramona, keep your eyes on your own work," Miss Vinny said, and sometimes Ramona remembered. For the first seat work assignment, each member of the class was told to draw a picture of his own house. Ramona, who had expected to learn to read and write in school like her sister Beezus, used her new crayons quickly to draw her house with two windows, a door, and a red chimney. With her green crayons, she scrubbed in some shrubbery. Anyone familiar with her neighborhood could tell the picture was of her house, but somehow Ramona was not satisfied. She looked around to see what other people were doing. Susan had drawn a picture of her house and was adding a girl with boing-boing curls looking out the window. Howie, who had drawn his house with the garage door open and a car inside, was adding a motorcycle parked at the curb. Davey's house looked like a clubhouse built by some boys who had a few old boards and not enough nails. It leaned to one side in a tired sort of way. Ramona studied her own drawing and decided she would have to do something to make it a little more interesting. After considering various colors of crayon, she selected the black, and she drew big black swirls coming from the windows. "You aren't supposed to scribble on your picture," said Howie, who was also inclined to pay attention to other people's work. Ramona was indignant. "I didn't scribble. The black is part of my picture." When Miss Binney asked the class to set their pictures on the chalk rail so that everyone might see them, the class noticed Ramona's picture at once because it was drawn with bold, heavy strokes because of the black swirls. "Miss Binney, Ramona scribbled all over her house," said Susan, who had revealed herself as the kind of girl who always wanted to play house so she could be the mother and boss everybody. "I did not," protested Ramona, beginning to see that her picture was going to be misunderstood by everyone. Maybe she had been wrong to try to make it interesting. Maybe Miss Binney did not want interesting pictures. "You did too." Joey ran up to the chalk rail and pointed to Ramona's black swirls. "See?" The class, including Ramona, waited for Miss Binney to say that Ramona should not scribble on her picture, but Miss Binney merely smiled and said, "Remember your seat, Joey. Ramona, please tell us about your picture." "I didn't scribble on it," said Ramona. "Of course you didn't," said Miss Binney. Ramona loved the teacher even more. "Well," she began, "that black isn't scribbling. It's smoke coming out of the windows." "Oh, and why is smoke coming out of the windows?" gently pressed Miss Binney. "Because there's a fire in the fireplace and the chimney's all stopped up," Ramona explained. "It's stopped up with Santa Claus, but he doesn't show in the picture." Ramona smiled shyly at her teacher. "I wanted to make my picture interesting." Miss Binney returned her smile. "And you did make it interesting." Davey looked worried. "How does Santa Claus get out?" he asked. "He doesn't stay in there, does he?" "Of course he gets out," said Ramona. "I just didn't show that part." The next day, seat work got harder. Miss Binney said that everyone had to learn to write his or her name. Ramona saw right away that the business of names was not fair. When Miss Binney handed each member of the class a strip of cardboard with his name printed on it, anyone could see that a girl named Ramona was going to have to work a lot harder than a girl named Anne or a boy named Joe. Not that Ramona minded having to work harder. She was eager to learn to read and write. Having been the youngest member of her family and of the neighborhood, however, she had learned to watch out for unfair situations. Carefully, Ramona printed her R, the way Miss Binney had printed it. A was easy. Even a baby could print A. Miss Binney said A was appointed like a witch's hat, and Ramona was planning to be a witch for Halloween. O was also easy. It was a round balloon. Some people's O's look like leaky balloons, but Ramona's O's were balloons full of air. "I like the way Ramona's O's are fat balloons full of air," Miss Binney had said. And Ramona's heart filled with joy. Miss Binney liked her O's the best. Miss Binney walked around the classroom looking over shoulders. "That's right, boys and girls. Nice pointed A's," she said. "A's with a nice sharp peaks. No, Davy, D faces the other way. Splendid, Karen. I like the way Karen's K has a nice straight back." Ramona wished she had a K in her name so that she could give it a nice straight back. Ramona enjoyed Miss Binney's descriptions of the letters of the alphabet and listened for them while she worked. In front of her, Susan played with a curl while she worked. She twisted it around her finger, stretched it out, and let it go. "Boing," thought Ramona automatically. "Ramona, let's keep our eyes on our work," said Miss Binney. "No, Davy, D faces the other way." Once more, Ramona bent over her paper. The hardest part of her name, she soon discovered, was getting the right number of points on the M and the N. Sometimes her name came out as Renoma, but before long she remembered that 2 points came first. "Good work, Ramona," said Miss Binney, the first time Ramona printed her name correctly. Ramona hugged herself with happiness and love for Miss Binney. Soon she was sure she could be able to join the letters together and write her name in the rumply grown-up way that Beezus wrote her name. And then Ramona discovered that some boys and girls had an extra letter by the end of their name with a dot. "Miss Binney, why don't I have a letter with a dot after it?" she asked. Because we only have one Ramona, said Miss Binny. We have two Erics, Eric Jones and Eric Ryan. We call them Eric J and Eric R because we don't want to get our Erics mixed up. Ramona did not like to miss anything. Could I have another letter with a little dot, she asked, knowing that Miss Binny would not think she was pestering. Miss Binny smiled and leaned over Ramona's table. Of course you may. This is the way to make a Q. A nice round O with a little tail like a cat. And there is your little dot, which is called a period. And then Miss Binny walked on supervising seat work. Ramona was charmed by her last initial. She drew a nice round O beside the one Miss Binny had drawn, and then she added a tail before she leaned back to admire her work. She had one balloon and two Halloween hats in her first name and a cat in her last name. She doubted if anyone in the morning kindergarten had such an interesting name. The next day at seat work time, Ramona practiced her cue while Miss Binny walked around helping those with S names. All the S's were having trouble. No, Susan, said Miss Binny. S stands up straight. It does not lie on the ground as if it were a little worm crawling along. Susan pulled out a curl and let it spring back. Boing, thought Ramona. Oh my, how many S's we have that are crawling along like worms, remarked Miss Binny. Ramona was pleased that she had escaped an S, and then she drew another Q and admired it a moment before she added two little pointed ears, and then she added two whiskers on each side so that her Q looked the way a cat looked when it crouched on the rug in front of a fireplace. I want to see if you can see this Q she made. So she added little ears and whiskers to her Q, so it looks kind of like a little kitty cat. How pleased Miss Binny would be. Miss Binny would say to the kindergarten, "What a splendid Q Ramona has made. It looks just like a little cat." "No, Davy," said Miss Binny. "A D does not have four corners. It has two corners. One side is curved like a robin redbreast." This conversation was so interesting that Ramona was curious to see Davy's D's for herself. She waited until Miss Binny had moved away before she slipped out of her seat and went over to the table to look at Davy's D. It was a great disappointment. "That D doesn't look like a robin," she whispered. "It doesn't have any feathers. A robin has feathers." She watched robins pulling worms out of her front lawn many times, and they all had feathers on their breasts, little soft feathers mussed by the wind. Davy studied his work, and then he scrubbed out half his D with his eraser and drew it in a series of little jags. It did not look like Miss Binny's D, but it did look, in Ramona's opinion, more like the front of a robin with feathers mussed up by the wind, which was what Miss Binny wanted, wasn't it? A D like a robin redbreast. "Good work, Davy," said Ramona, trying to sound like her teacher. Now maybe Davy would let her kiss him. "Ramona," said Miss Binny, "in your seat, please." She walked back to look at Davy's seat work. "No, Davy, didn't I tell you to curve the D as smooth as a robin's redbreast? No, yours is all jagged." Davy looked bewildered. "Those are feathers," he said, "feathers like a robin." "Oh, I'm sorry, Davy, I didn't mean..." Miss Binny behaved as if she did not know what to say. "I didn't mean to show each feather. I meant to make it smooth and round." "Ramona told me to do it that way," said Davy. "Ramona said a robin has to have feathers." "Well, Ramona is not a kindergarten teacher," said Miss Binny. Her voice, although not exactly cross, was not her usual gentle voice. "You make your D the way I showed you and never mind what Ramona says." Ramona felt confused. Things had such an unexpected way of turning out wrong. Miss Binny said a D should look like a robin redbreast, didn't she? And robins had feathers, didn't they? So why wasn't she putting feathers on the D all right? Davy glared at Ramona as he took his eraser and scrubbed out half the D a second time. He scrubbed so hard he rumpled his paper. "Now see what you made me do," he said. Ramona felt terrible. Dear little Davy, whom she loved so much, was angry with her, and now he would run even faster than ever, and she would never get to kiss him. And even worse, Miss Binny did not like D's with feathers, so she probably wouldn't like Q's with ears and whiskers either. Hoping her teacher would not see what she was doing, Ramona quickly and regretfully erased the ears and the whiskers from her Q. How plain and bare it looked with only a tail left behind to keep it from being an O. Miss Binny, who could understand that Santa Claus in the chimney would make a fireplace smoke, might be disappointed if she knew Ramona had given her cute ears and whiskers because lettering was different from drawing pictures. Ramona loved Miss Binny so much she did not want to disappoint her, not ever. Miss Binny was the nicest teacher in the whole world. That's the end of chapter 3. When we come back, we're going to read a chapter called The Substitute. Does anyone know what a substitute is? We're going to find out when we come back for chapter 4. Bye for now.